Welcome to the Ronni Resonance Podcast, a space for women in transition, becoming, and rebirth. I'm Ronni, an intuitive guide, mentor, and multi-dimensional human learning right alongside you. Here we explore identity shifts, intuition, alignment, purpose, and the deeper truths you've been feeling but maybe haven't said out loud yet. This is where you return to yourself, gently, honestly, and with resonance. Take a breath. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ronni Resonance Podcast. This month, inside the Becoming Sanctuary, our theme is embodiment and becoming. And today, I really want to talk about the in-between season that happens when you've changed internally, but maybe your external life hasn't fully caught up yet. Because I think a lot of people assume transformation is it's like instant, this instant thing where your life suddenly changes overnight and everything makes sense and you just become this totally new person. But honestly, I think one of the strangest parts of becoming someone new or something different or whatever is that internally you can feel completely different before your external reality fully reflects that. So I feel like that's where I've been lately. Just externally, my life still looks similar in some, different ways. I'm still figuring things out. I'm still rebuilding things. I'm still restructuring my business and navigating uncertainty. But internally, I know that I'm not the same person anymore. And once you start understanding yourself differently, once you start making more aligned choices, once your awareness expands, you really can't go back to the version of yourself that existed before that. So today we're going to be talking about identity shifts, anxiety and nervous system regulation, authenticity, outgrowing old versions of yourself, and what happens when your inner world changes before your life fully catches up. So before we get started, just a quick note, everybody joining will be muted and cameras will be off just to keep the space focused and easy to move through. And you can absolutely use the chat throughout. I'm going to be checking that as we go and just responding as I can. But if something resonates with you, you can simply just say you agree. You don't necessarily need to send multiple messages. And if you have questions, again, feel free to drop that into the chat. So let's get into this. So like I said, something that I've realized recently is that your inner world can completely change before your external life fully reflects it. And honestly, I think that's one of the hardest parts of becoming. So, talking about my life, I guess, externally, my life still looks fairly similar, I would say, but really internally is where I've had the most change in my life. And I think that what I'm seeing as far as what's changed internally is that I do have a deeper peace in my life. Like I have just gotten to a place like where I'm able to ground myself and see different perspectives and things. And so because of this, I've just been able to deeper this like stronger self-trust that I have with myself. And so I think the other thing that helps the self-trust is some of these lessons that I've been having over the years are like finally clicking into place for me. And so as my perspectives have shifted, it makes me it makes me just think about things differently or maybe show up differently. And I think that's where the piece comes in. Like if we're talking about I've talked about this in other podcast episodes, but like if there's somebody in your life that says something that is not nice to you, or maybe not even something to you, it could be something where they share an opinion with you and they're really fired up and angry about it, but then you're over here like, but I have this other feeling and opinion. And it's like, instead of trying to like force that and get them to see that, I've kind of just gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, so we're all at different points in where we are in this journey. And so the perspective shift for me was realizing that, okay, I might have this understanding of this certain thing or this perspective on it because I've done inner work. I've looked at all aspects of whatever situation, that whatever scenario we want to talk about. But I've just realized that, there's no hierarchy in this process. It's just simply the fact that I've been able to see when somebody else is maybe not where I am and like at least hold space for where they are and know that, okay, maybe they don't mean this in a certain way, or I just have more peace around other people's behavior because I know it has nothing to do with me. And a lot of the time it has a lot to do with them and some of the lessons they are still learning, or better ways to be like an awakened individual and not feel like you're screaming at people all the time. And trust me, that was me at one point. So I totally understand that. Um, but I think a lot of people, they get mad. I think a lot of people spend their lives thinking that things are happening to them in life. Like, I made that reference last time about like driving and people driving in front of you and acting like idiots and you wanting to act like an idiot because you're mad. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. But what I've realized is that I've tried to change my perspective as far as changing it that I'm realizing that things are happening for me. And so in moments where, I might be upset about something or whatever, like let's say something, my car's not starting, or something's wrong with my car and I'm trying to go to work, I could be pissed about that. I could be mad, yelling, whatever, and really expressing my frustration in that moment. But when you're at this place of like becoming who you really want to be and becoming this expanded version of yourself, this higher self version of yourself, you start to realize that like, oh, maybe there's a reason that my car's not starting right now. And instead of getting mad about it, I'm going to think, oh, maybe this is protecting me from myself getting in an accident today. And I'm not going to get mad. I'm just going to trust whatever's coming through and whatever the universe is putting in front of me that day. And I don't think the universe necessarily tests you in ways, but I think that it's going to keep putting things in your life to keep testing you in a way to see if you've learned the lesson. And so some of my lessons definitely have been around having more peace, not getting worked up about things. And so just internally, all that being said, I just really think my inner authority has strengthened. I am able to hold myself instead of like allowing somebody else to get me like my feathers ruffled or, whatever. So all of that allowed me to have these repeated aligned choices when it came to changing mindset. And that's the thing too that's huge, is just that we can create our reality. And so the more times you make positive aligned choices, you're going to get positive back. So even just that perspective shift in your mind of like, no, this isn't happening to me today, it's happening for me. And I can get through this and I am going to have patience and know that like it's okay. So I think that is slowly changing my external, but it's a process. I do think that before your external can truly change, you do have to do the inner work, change your mindset. And I think that's what's so hard is that you really have to become this new person before your external proof appears. And that has been the hardest thing for me because it's like, I feel so different inside. Why isn't my whole life changing externally? Why aren't I getting all these clients? Why am I not getting all this money? Why am I not, all of that stuff? But the thing is that life has to catch up sometimes. And that's what my life is currently doing. And I'm slowly seeing as my internal has changed, my external reality, I'll have these opportunities come up that I haven't had in a long time. And, they may not all work out. But again, I'm getting more opportunities now and more opportunities to say yes or no to certain things and make these aligned decisions. So it's I'm just still in that process, but I'm more closer to getting my external reality where I want it to be than I was 6 months ago. Because 6 months ago, I had a whole different mindset of, where I was in my life and what was going on. I was like, oh my God, I have to change everything, which I talked about in last episode. But something in me was just like, you know what, something has to change. And the only thing I have control over right now is literally myself. So as long as I can work on myself and get myself to a good place without the external being perfect, without the external being something that I've been wanting for so long, then once I have the external, once I have that thing that I want, I'm way more prepared, way more ready for that to come in. Whereas if I was just unhealed, or maybe I was still living in this negative mindset or just a different perspective, I think that maybe I wouldn't have been ready for the things that are coming in my life now. So it's important to understand, like, it takes time, that this internal integration is going to happen first, and that this external life, that part of it is going to catch up later. So I also realized that a lot of what I thought was anxiety was actually my body reacting to living out of alignment. So I'll just tell this really quickly. I haven't really talked about this. I might have talked about this on a different episode, but my anxiety, I have lived with generalized not chronic, but generalized pretty bad anxiety since I was a child. And I think the first ever diagnosis I got for generalized anxiety was at 6 years old. And that came along with my ADD diagnosis in like 1996, or no, that would be like 1999 or something. So it's been a long time. And I got a second diagnosis for both of them at 30. So nothing had really changed in my life. Things changed over the years and in my life, but I was seeing that I was still having these things, and or this anxiety, or these feelings. And for the longest time, I forced myself. It was like that, like exposing myself, social exposure, things like that, to try to like force myself to not be that way. So I would force myself into environments that, were maybe not always best for me or what I thought. Again, social situations I was forcing myself into. Again, with having ADHD, I would force productivity even on days where I was like, my mind's not working. Like, what am I supposed to do? I would force hustle culture, just trying to operate like everybody else. Cause I think that so many times when you have, especially when you're diagnosed as a young child with anxiety and ADHD, you really do try to operate like everybody else. You feel like the odd one out. And I don't know how that is now for kids in school, but I know back in like the 90s, early 2000s, it was just not as widely accepted to have anxiety and depression and stuff. So it was a lot of just like forcing all the time. But later on, all of that, all of the forcing led to this like nervous system dysregulation. And like I said, the forcing had been since a child. Whether that was that I consciously chose that and wanted to force myself, or other people like teachers or family or whatever would be trying to force stuff onto me too. And I think that when you're a parent, you also look at your kid and you're like, oh, I just want them to be successful. I want them to be smart. I want them to do well in school and all of these things. And so knowing that, most parents are going to try to just be like, well, I don't want to educate. I don't want to medicate you, and I don't want to put you in special classes, and I don't want to whatever. So I want you to feel normal. So I'm just going to keep having you do this stuff. And so when that's ingrained in you, you think as you go on with life, you stop listening to your body, and you stop realizing what the things are causing, and it makes it put all the blame on you, that it's all your body and it's who you are that's causing you to have anxiety, ADHD, things like that, and that these are things that can be fixed. But as I went on, I was getting burnout, I was getting sensory overwhelm, and I was trying to fit these societal expectations. And so all of those things, like as I started to go on in life, and especially in my business, that's where the biggest thing happened, where I was like, oh, I don't know if this is necessarily something wrong with me, because I started to see the pattern of like when I was pulled out of certain situations or when I had full control over what I was doing or whatever, I wasn't anxious. I felt peaceful. I felt like good. And then I started to realize the times when I started to feel bad. And I had gotten medicated. I think it was in 2017 or something maybe. And I think I started with maybe Lexapro. Did that for about 4 years. And then I think I did Zoloft for like 1 year. I took a year off between the two. But what happened with Lexapro, and I think this is extremely important to say, and I also want to say before I get into this that I am a advocate for people to be medicated, to get the things that they need for themselves, all of that. So I just want to say that before I say what I'm about to say, because I don't want to take in the wrong way. I think that medication definitely has its place, but I think it's up to the person to decide if it's working for them and how long is too long that they're on medication. And for me, so like I said, I started at 2017. When I got into 2020, so it was the January of 2019, I merged my business and I got a business partner. And we're signing our operating agreement and I'm like, la da da, like signing it away. And even the lawyer was like, wow, you're so chill. You're, hilarious that she said that, because later on, anyway, I'll get to that. So, what I realized in my business partnership, I was so complacent. I was so like, neutral, even keel on everything. Like I didn't have any like highs and lows really. I was just kind of like baseline all the time. And so I think just a lot of things happened that I wasn't aware of in the moment that they were happening. Like I was just so relaxed and chilled out and like go with the flow, that things were starting to happen around me that were not good. And meaning like I was becoming way too nonchalant, way too allowing for my business partner to make decisions despite how I might have felt about it. I was just overly trusting about somebody else. And maybe some of that was still some of the healing I needed to do and the self-trust and the work I need to do on myself, that that I am a successful business owner and I don't need her and I can make decisions and whatever. So but when I left that business partnership, that's when it hit me. Like there were things that happened that I'm like, oh my God, like I don't think I would have made this decision, because I believe that my anxiety, so I'm an empath. I'm somebody who's a feeler, all the things. I believe that my anxiety is like my alert system. Like my body, I feel everything in it that tells me things. Like if I have a sudden knowing, or if something may not be a good thing or whatever, like I feel that. And when that signal wasn't there, granted, I never learned how to listen to it anyway, but I started to realize once I came off the medication, the change in myself. And that first year of being off of it, I was essentially like, I guess you could say I was withdrawing. And so my anxiety was really bad. And so I got on Zoloft. And then I just got to a point where I was like, I just can't do any of this anymore. I need to rid myself of all of this stuff. And I need to like figure out what's going on. And so it's really weird, because I don't think that I actually knew that I was going to get to this point when I did this. I think I was just kind of like, I can't trust myself on these medications, because I feel like I don't have, again, that alert system. So that was something that was a big change for me. And so when I really think about all of it, I realized that so much of my anxiety was simply being caused by the environments I was in, just feeling just not good, I guess. And so I always just thought something was wrong with me and that it was my stuff to fix. So my anxiety is really information. It's like your body is usually knowing things before your mind fully accepts it. So I think really for me, it was like removing stressors in my life is what changed everything, and really learning how to regulate my nervous system intentionally now, So like when something comes up, or if I know I have to go do something that's going to make me feel anxious or whatever, I know different things to get me through that. And I'm also learning a lot of lessons as far as like, what is the anxiety that you're having? And, and understanding what that is, and like actually realizing, okay, it's not just a feeling in your body. It's like, but what is the actual thought causing the anxiety? And a lot of the time for me, it's like the outcome of the thing I'm doing, right? And so I had to start realize like that's something else that's changed for me, and the internal is that I'm very present. Like I am very present in the moment than I've ever been. And I think that has helped me to not stress about the future or stress about traumas or what happened in the past. I'm very much just like, how do I feel right now? I can't control the future. I can't control what happened from the past. I can only control right now and myself. And so that has helped me a lot, getting in different situations, and that I have control of those situations that might make me feel uncomfortable. So I think another huge part of this season this in between season for me has been realizing that the old version of me could not come with me into this next chapter. And so, like I talked about in the last episode, like my old business identity is like, I don't even know who she is anymore, like as a business owner. I used to have this like boss girl mentality, and I just feel like that's just not me anymore. I don't really give a shit to say I'm a boss or anything. And I think that comes along with like that proving energy of like proving that I can run this business and proving that I can do all of these things. So I also think that I've given up just this attachment to productivity and just feeling like, like let's say if I want a certain amount of money or something and I don't have it, there's a lot of us that think, well, you're not doing anything right now, so you better find a way and make that money. And it's like, it doesn't always work like that. I've kind of started to just trust that like things are going to come in the timing that it's supposed to come in, and that I need to be focused on those things as they come in and not necessarily just like doing things or finding things to do that I think are going to get me from A to B or get me the money that I need, or, whatever. I think the other thing too that's changed a lot, like as far as like my old identity, is like if you know me, if you've known me my whole career as an esthetician, like I've always like had my makeup done and like always was put together and everything. And like I've really just stripped down my appearance, I feel like, because I think that for a long time I was really just trying to fit into this like beauty industry mold. And that worked for me for a while in my younger years. And as I've gotten older, like I said, my perspectives have shifted, and I cared about different things differently than I did before. It's made me feel like I just don't care to do myself up all the time, or to present myself in this like almost mask where it's like, this is just me. I even like dress more comfortably now. I'm not trying to like wear heels and a dress and trying to force this like boss girl look. It's less performative. Honestly, it's less performative. I think a lot of women for a long time have had a hard time just gaining recognition or being successful business owners, or being just like respected as business owners. And so I think there was like this surgence of women really wanting to make an impact. And I think some people, especially the beauty industry, took that and turned it into this like in your face performative thing. And I think for me now, I just want like softer success. Like I want things like, to me now, success is like, oh, I sat quietly long enough to like have this like epiphany come through. And now I'm like, okay, that changes things. And then I go with the flow. Like, there's no thing anymore that I'm like, I have to get this amount of money. I have to have this happen. I have to like, my life has to look like this by this point. I've completely surrendered like expectations of what I need my life to look like. And instead, I'm just kind of going with the flow and allowing things to be more intentional, I guess. Like I am living a much more intentional life. Like I try to be present. I try to be just listening to stuff when it comes in, like my intuition and like connecting with myself and listening to my body and like what I feel like I should be doing today, or, not feeling like I have to rush to get things done and that things will all fall into place when they're supposed to. So again, like it's just more intentional instead of just forcing a bunch of shit that doesn't matter. It's like do what needs to get done now and what you feel is most important, and, do as much as you can. And when your body says stop, you stop. And the biggest thing I want to say too with this is that with authenticity, like showing up online in particular, I, for a long time, thought that being authentic online was like, I don't know. I guess I didn't call it this back then, but I definitely would call it this now. But I thought authenticity was what is actually performance. And I didn't know. Like if you see your favorite YouTuber, okay, and they get on, they have a podcast and they start talking about all this stuff, like if they're really exaggerated and happy and stuff, like you could, especially if they're cussing or especially if they're just like being like real and just like being opinionated or doing all these things. I think that sometimes people, like especially people that are really funny, it's like they're sharing something you're interested in, plus their personality, like their humor on top of that is you really like that. But I just want to say that that's not always like truly authentically that person. It could be like a heightened version of themselves that they are performing and not necessarily who they are. And so that's something that's changed with me online when it comes to this, is that I don't try to be anything more. Like I just show up as I am on that day when I'm recording. Like right now is who I am. Like if you watch my videos, I'm sure you'll see days where I've got a lot of energy, other days where I just maybe am a little more chill. Like it just depends, But I've just learned that like me being authentic is just like me just being as I am in that moment for that day. It's not performance. So that has been a huge thing for me. But the other thing, I really want to get into this because this, I think, was my actual catalyst moment of when I decided to actually like step into this new thing and really start changing perspective and all of this stuff. So, like I've talked to you guys, I like was debating for a while in the fall, really last year, but in the fall I was debating if I should part with my spa. And I knew in my heart where I was like, yeah, I need to, like I just need to. Like I talked about this already in last episode, but just of like the financial situation of everybody right now and how that's impacting my business, and just how I feel, even if I thought about, well, what if I was busy right now? Would you be happy? And so I really started thinking, about this. So I had this dream right before I made the decision to let go of my spa. And really looking back now, it's incredibly symbolic. And I think that, I don't know if I've shared this yet, but basically in the dream, I woke up. I think my friends were with me. My husband Sage I think was with us. And they're like, all right, we got to go. And we were on some trip. We go down, we get in an Uber, and we're headed out. We're ready. I think we're going to the airport maybe. So we're driving, and it looks like we're in India. It's like a lot of cars on the streets, very tight, that was just like the vibe I was getting in the dream, which is really interesting. I'm still have not figured out why India, but maybe it was somewhere else. I don't know. That was just where I thought it was. So all of a sudden, the Uber driver is like speeding. He's going absolutely crazy. And I'm looking at like everybody like, what the hell is going on? We're going to crash. Like, who are we running from? This is so weird. And like, he was running from somebody else. And I still don't know what we were running from, but I think I have some ideas. So we get down on this off ramp. I think we're almost to maybe the airport. And I look at Sage and I go, oh my God, I left all of my stuff at the hotel, my suitcase, like literally everything I brought on this trip. I left it there. And I remember looking at Sage and being like, oh my God, I need, can we turn around? And he's just like, dude, we just ran from somebody. Like, we cannot turn around. So I was like, okay, like, I'll figure it out. So fast forward, we're at home. The home does not look like our home. But anyway, I remember telling Sage, I'm like, I need to call them and see if they will allow me to, if they will just ship it to me. If I can just call, they'll ship it to me. I'll pay whatever to get my stuff back. So a lady answers the phone, and she's got a little bit of an accent. So we're having a hard time like communicating a little bit. And she's like, okay, hold on, let me get somebody else on the phone. We'll try to figure this out. And so all of a sudden, like these women just start talking to each other, and then the phone cuts off. And like I don't even know what they were talking about, or I don't remember that part. But I remember just being like so defeated, like looking at Sage and being like crying and being like, oh my God, I'm never getting my stuff back. And I remember Sage, or maybe even just myself, somebody had said, it's okay. Like you'll get it back. Like not getting it back, but like you can part with these things and we can just buy new things. We'll just buy new things. It's completely fine. And what I realized, so I was still in the process of making this decision with my spa when this dream had happened, like in that time frame. The next morning, I woke up and I sat on that for a little while. And I'm like, that was telling me something. And I just can't figure it out. And then it just hit me. I think that the suitcase and all of my stuff represented this like old version of myself. And I had a lot of grief in just releasing that. I think even when any of us go through our closet and there's things we've held on for years and you're like, oh, I don't know, I can't get rid of it yet. I can't get rid of it yet. And that's been me my whole life. I've always held on, been very sentimental. That's just who I am. And so I had been told actually by a medium, a psychic, a couple months prior to this. He's like, you're going to realize that you've worked really hard on something for a long time, but you're going to realize it's not for you. And you're going to have a lot of grief around separating from that. And I didn't know what he meant really. I mean, I thought he's might be talking about my spa, but there's no way I'm not getting rid of my spa. What? That's crazy, And I just started to realize that no, I think that is what it's talking about. And I didn't know if I think when I had the realization of like, okay, maybe I should let go of this and I should do this, that was the thing. I think it was, I didn't know what I was grieving, but I think I was grieving like what people knew me as, or just this old version of myself, the old ways that I did business and what I thought worked then that I'm realizing now is like not me. So I think it was just trying to tell me that if you can part with this old version of yourself, we promise you that you will make room for something even better, something new, and to really surrender to this. And it's so funny because I cried and cried and cried with this when I had this realization of like, no, I think this is it. And so what also came to my surprise was when I actually contacted the landlord about starting the process of getting out of my lease and all of that stuff. I thought the grief was going to come from that. The actual doing, the actual getting out of this. But my grief was really coming to that conclusion. And so by the time I told my landlord, I had, relief. I had so much relief of being like, oh my gosh, so this means like once this is done, like I don't have to do this anymore and I can do it differently, or I could do what I want to do. And so I think I just realized like the burden that had been weighing on me for years that I just maybe didn't know how hard that was because I had just been pushing for so long that I just didn't know. And so it was really strange. Like that dream, that's the thing that everybody needs to be paying attention to right now is their dreams. Apparently, that's a huge thing with this awakening and just this shift in consciousness and all the stuff that's going on. Our dreams are really giving us the clues and the lessons that we need in order to know where in our lives need to change, where we need to heal ourselves, all of that. And I think once your awareness expands, once you truly start to understand yourself differently, I just think you can't really go back to pretending that you don't see it anymore. I think once I realized, I had the realization of that relief, and I think that awareness just changed me. I think realizing what was out of alignment and what would be more in alignment would change me for the better. And so I felt like I almost had the second lease on life once I did rip off the band-aid and just do it. And I thought I was going to be terrified. I thought I was going to be like, "Oh my God, what's going to happen next?" But I didn't care as much as I thought that I would. So, forcing your old identity, it becomes so painful because your old life is going to start feeling so exhausting. And that's what was happening to me. But I want to make something really clear is that your grief and relief, they can exist together. And I think sometimes what you're grieving is why you held on for so long. But once you come to the conclusion that you should change things and then you actually do it or you make the first step in changing things, you can have relief. I think that those two things can coexist together, but it is a little confusing when you hadn't felt like you would feel relief until it happened. And I was like, oh my God. So I just think that this also caused me to be more intentional, to listen to myself more, to choose alignment over familiarity, to live a softer life, a more peaceful life. And that was something I just had a reading with my medium friend a month or so ago. And she was like, "You're stepping into a ton of peace in your life." And I feel that. I feel that now. And I feel like it's only going to get greater. And especially the more that I just stay in alignment with what feels true to me. And I also feel like authenticity feels better than performance. It's like you either like who I am and the way I show up and when I talk about, like, I'm a deep person. I'm not surface level. I'm not getting on here to do a TikTok dance like I maybe would have a couple years ago. I'm really talking about deep things. And I understand that that process of showing up online like that, it's going to take time because not a lot of people are ready to talk about stuff. Some people really want to talk about it, but they're not ready to maybe admit that they're watching or admit that they are liking what I'm talking about, or they don't want someone else to see what they just liked in case they think it's about them. I understand all those things. And so I think that my growth is going to be slow and steady, but it will last longer than just trying to like go viral and try to like do all the things and force everything. I just don't think that that works for me anymore. I'm just no longer wanting to force what is no longer going to naturally fit into my life or what feels uncomfortable or just doesn't really feel like me. And I think that's really the hardest part about becoming. You can feel yourself changing internally before your external life fully reflects that. And I think that's been the biggest, obviously, theme of this whole episode is, it creates this really strange in between season where you're just no longer who you used to be, but you're still becoming who you're meant to be. And that season, it can feel exciting. It is exciting for me. It feels freeing. It does feel a little uncomfortable because you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going with it. The uncertainty, of just what is going to change and evolve over time with these changes that you're making. It definitely can feel lonely because, like I said, some people aren't ready for this. Even the people closest to me aren't liking my things on social media or things like that. And I understand that I have to realize it's probably has nothing to do with necessarily me. It has everything to do with what are you ready to admit about your life and about yourself. And sometimes the things that I post are a little exposing. And so that's why my seasons felt lonely. But I think anytime you make more aligned decisions that look very different from your old life, it is lonely because people don't really understand it, or they think like they've always known you as one person and now you're moving into something different, or you like there's certain people in my life that I used to entertain the drama. I used to be the kind of the emotional holder for them. And now I'm like, no, this is between you guys. I cannot. I'm trying to be peaceful. I'm trying to protect my peace, I guess I should say. So this whole season can really feel like relieving, like I said, but very deeply transformational at the same time. So it's a lot, and that is kind of my whole thing that I want to help people go through, is like really like living for themselves and doing what feels the most aligned and good in their body and their soul and all of that. So inside the extended episode, I really want to go deeper into like the grief of becoming, forcing versus alignment, practical embodiment, nervous system regulation, authenticity, visibility, restructuring your life around alignment, and learning how to trust yourself before you have external proof that everything is working. So if you are a premium or VIP member inside the Becoming Sanctuary, you can head over to the extended podcast classroom now and join me there live. And if you're watching this on YouTube, the extended episode and this week's embodiment tools are available inside the Becoming Sanctuary, linked in the description below. Thank you guys for being here, and I will see you over in the extended episode.